is back at the top with the #1 album, Bat Out of Hell 2. Make it your #1 album.
When I just started middle school, I first discovered the first Bat Outta Hell album. It set forth my love of bombastic, operatic, theatrical rock and roll. 2 years later, I found my way to the sequel, that in many ways matches, and in some cases, even surpasses the original. Whether you agree with that statement or not, you have to agree that the album is a worthy bearer of the Bat Outta Hell title. Like a horror film sequel, this one is heavier and harder than the original. The cover alone is worth the price of admission. A guy going kamikaze on a flying motorcycle toward a giant bat to save his angel girlfriend who's chained up on a tumbling building in a hellscape nightmare world. Damn. It took 16 years from the original, but when The Beast was released in September of '93, it made one hell of an impact. It reached #1 all over the world as an album, and its singles did as well. Jim Steinman said he wanted it to be like The Godfather Part 2, going further and more extreme than the original. Talks of a sequel began all the way back in 1978. Steinman had a whole book of new material he was ready to share after a show in Toronto. When the group got back to their dressing room, however, someone had broken into the room and stolen a lot of stuff, including the book. So you might even say that somewhere out there is a lost sequel to the original Bat. Afterward, their luck got even worse when Meat Loaf lost his voice. Steinman produced his own sequel to Bat called Bad for Good as a solo album. He also used some of the Bat 2 material for his girl group, Pandora's Box. On top of this, Jim and Meat's relationship had cooled throughout the years, and it looked like a sequel would never happen. After rekindling their friendship in the late 80s, they were ready to start producing the album. However, at this point, no one wanted to touch the project. Bat Outta Hell had become a relic, and the idea of doing a sequel attracted no one. Steinman felt this was partly because of Meat's managers, who he felt just couldn't deal with the record companies. He even refused to give up half the songs if Meat didn't get someone new to manage him. He finally relented, and they began recording in 1991. This album serves as a reunion in many ways. If you compare the performers on the two records, it's like looking in a mirror. The production was apparently turbulent, which led to a huge fight between Meat and Jim during the mixing of the songs. For the main track, I Would Do Anything for Love, they knew they wanted a female vocalist for a duet at the end. A singer by the name of Lorraine Crosby was brought in to do a temporary demo track. As production continued, many names of who would actually sing the part were kicked around, including Bonnie Tyler, Cher, and Melissa Etheridge. But they liked Crosby's takes so much, they decided to use them on the final album. She is credited on the record as Mrs. Loud. Sadly, because her contract was only for temp tracks, she didn't receive any royalties from the song. Each track on the record is a mini opera, with its own self-contained stories and themes. The only 2 tracks under 3 minutes are a monologue called Wasted Youth, performed by Jim Steinman, and the instrumental track, Back into Hell. For the cover, they got artist Michael Whelan. You've probably seen his stuff on many fantasy and science fiction books. Everything down to the title font was done to attract fans of the original. Within the booklet, there was additional art. I love all these pieces, especially the piece for Rock and Roll Dreams Come Through. 3 songs were chosen for the singles: I Would Do Anything for Love, Objects in the Rearview Mirror Are Closer Than They Appear, and Rock and Roll Dreams Come Through. The most successful being I Would Do Anything for Love, which became a huge hit all around the world. All the singles got music videos directed by Michael Bay. In addition to Meat Loaf, they also feature performances by Angelina Jolie and Robert Patrick. These and a few other videos would be compiled for an accompanying VHS tape. The album was a huge hit with most, although some felt it was too much and too over the top, much like the original was received. This, along with the original Bat, would be adapted into the musical. When I was a kid, I focused mainly on the main tracks, and just a few others. I actually memorized the monologue for Wasted Youth. As I got older, much like with the first record, I began to understand and appreciate the messages in the other tracks. For a long time, all I had on vinyl was the single release of Rock and Roll Dreams. The only vinyl release was a picture disc that commanded very high prices. It was a grail for me for a long time, until they decided to do the re-release at the beginning of this year. I don't think the cover has ever looked better, and the music has a power on vinyl that just can't be matched. Seek this one out if you've never heard it before, or if you're a longtime fan looking to go back into hell.